Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave has a legitimate shot at a lot of accolades, rewards, and high review scores after the most recent previews. Now, I was kind of waiting to see when people would ask me, hey, OJ, what do you think about Game of the Year possibilities, or more like a nomination? Obviously, it's not going to win, but what do you think about Game of the Year possibilities? What do you think about the review scores? How do you think this game is going to shake out? Not from their own personal enjoyment, that's separate. Obviously, if you like Fire Emblem, you're going to probably like this game a lot, and you're not worried too much about what other reviewers are saying, unless it's an absolute train wreck. But we know that this game wasn't going to be that. But just when it comes to an bigger scope industry-wide, can Fire Emblem live up to the lofty expectations of the series and live up to what happened with Fire Emblem Three Houses about 7 years ago at this point? And I am happy to report that not only has it lived up to it, it seems like it's exceeded it in every single way. And I know this because a lot of the general or kind of big media sites went hands-on with it, and they absolutely love it. Now, there is one particular person that I could not believe what I was hearing when they said it, so we're gonna break down what's going on there and every single thing this game, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, can do when it comes to intelligent systems and the opportunities that it will bring about on the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Okay, so I was watching a review, or more like a hands-on impressions from SkillUp. He is a big reviewer, one of the biggest reviewers on YouTube with over 1.08 million subscribers, and he put out a video talking about this. This was the title of the video: I just couldn't stop playing Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave hands-on impressions. So it's a 23-minute impressions video, very well edited, and he talks about various different things. But in the video, there are some pretty big bullet points that I wanted to discuss what he says. He said that the ambition is so grand that it makes Fire Emblem Engage look like a DLC pack. He said that there's so many diverse paths, so much various gameplay mechanics and systems, it's incredible to see. He played all 4 paths that he could play up to a certain chapter, and it took him about 30 hours. So this game is packed full of content if you want to do all that content. There's so much storytelling and social systems. It was great to see that. And he said this is probably one of the best compliments that he had for it. The game has crazy aura, moxie, and X factors. That to me is called sauce and drip. Those are my words. He says you can use whatever words you want. Well, sauce and drip would be the words that I'm talking about. Plus aura too. I mean, X Factor, not bad. A little bit old. Moxie, a little bit older on that. But sauce, drip, aura, I like what I'm hearing from that. Now, it seems also like the developers with the Switch 2, which is something that I've been saying here, with the power and boost of the Switch 2, with the creative freedom that they have at this point to create what they want, it seems like they've been unleashed in Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave compared to, like, let's say Fire Emblem Engage, which I do think Fire Emblem Engage, which he kind of bashed a few times in this preview, that's not a big follow-up to Three Houses. That was like an anniversary game. I think that was just something they put together, a little Fire Emblem game for the fans out there. I think that's really what that game was. I don't think it was supposed to be like the next follow-up or the next major Fire Emblem game, and that's why they did like the whole bond rings and that type of style. It wasn't supposed to be the next big game. So I think that's what happened with Fire Emblem Engage. Even though I do like the game, I think it's a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 style of game, maybe a bit higher if you like the combat options in the game. So I do believe that this game with Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is that true next successor. And I've said it before, future of Fire Emblem, it does seem like SkillUp also agrees based off of his preview and based off of various different previews that we've gotten from different outlets. This seems like the game that we've all been waiting for. Now, here's the thing. This means that Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave has a chance to review very high. If you look back at Fire Emblem Three Houses, right there on the cusp, 89 Metacritic, so close to that coveted 90 plus Metacritic. And of course, the better the reviews, the better the chance your game has to sell well and just do better and get more awards and accolades and get more people into the franchise. Fire Emblem got big because the reviews were good. Let's just be honest here, guys. Like, if you go back to Fire Emblem, where it was almost dead, where they were thinking about killing off the franchise if they didn't sell a certain amount, Fire Emblem Awakening was that game that unlocked that. But guess what? Fire Emblem Awakening was an incredible game that reviewed really high and got people to buy the game. That's really what happened there. Fire Emblem Awakening came out and people were like, oh, another Fire Emblem game, right? But then it was like, wait a minute, it's like a 90 something on Metacritic, and people picked it up. It just exploded. So it is important. It's not the only thing, and it's not what you should be looking at when it comes to a game and buying. It's not like, oh, the review score, that's it. But we have to be honest here. Fire Emblem is around now at this point because the developers made a great game first and foremost, but also because it reviewed incredibly well and got many people who had never played a Fire Emblem game to pick up Fire Emblem. And here we are now with Fire Emblem Three Houses selling 5 million units. Even Engage sold over 1 million units. So that's the great thing about Fire Emblem now. That's what kind of spurred it to do a lot better, was those great reviews for the game. So I'm hoping that Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave can get good enough reviews to get more people into the game and get more people into Switch 2, and it'll be better for all of us because more and more people are playing Fire Emblem. Here's the thing though, with these previews and from what I've seen, I'm looking at this game and all of its scope and scale. Has Intelligent Systems taken the next step? And I'd have to say yes. They've taken the next step with the hardware. I think that they've mastered what they're doing when it comes to the NVIDIA chipset, and they were really given enough time, and I think they're given the resources, and if Koei Tecmo is on the case with this one as well, they were given everything to truly kind of make a type of game that would be befitting of the first major Fire Emblem game on the platform, in not even the second year when it comes to full year of the Nintendo Switch 2. If you remember, Fire Emblem Three Houses, that came out in, I think, summer or so of 2019. That was more than 2 years after the Nintendo Switch 1 launched. But with Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, it's coming out this September. So that means it's coming out about a year and a few months after the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. So they were able to even get things done when it comes to that more efficiently compared to the launch of the system. Now, of course, you have to look at when development started and all that, but I do think that it's pretty cool that they've been able to lock this in with no issues. Whereas if you remember, Fire Emblem Three Houses had 2 delays. It had multiple issues with it, and it looks like, based off of the gameplay here, that it's looking solid. So I do think that Intelligent Systems has taken that next step. Now, could this game get a Game of the Year nominations? Is it now possible? Absolutely, it's now possible. I think that based off of these previews here, remember, a lot of the general reviewers, kind of PC type people, they're going to be reviewing this game. SkillUp is a PC first and foremost guy, so the fact that he's actually this high on Fire Emblem is good news for the other normal general reviewers out there, just kind of like what we saw with Pokemon Pocopia. And I think that's why I'm a bit more like, okay, wait, hold up, if he's saying that, because the same thing happened with Pokemon Pocopia. I was not expecting that game to do as well as it did, but reviews wise, when it comes to the previews, they were all praising Pokemon Pocopia a lot before the game came out. They were praising it, talking about how good it was, and I was shocked. Now, I'm not as shocked with Fire Emblem because Fire Emblem traditionally, obviously, you know, really good reviewing franchise, but the fact that they were all praising Pokemon Pocopia beforehand, and that game ended up getting an 89 and could be in the Game of the Year running this year, I think that that bodes well for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, considering it's got like actual really cool combat, it's got a lot of mechanics and systems. This could push it over what we need, which would be a 90 plus Metacritic. I want to see that. Fire Emblem has not been rated that in a decade with Fire Emblem Awakening, a decade plus with Fire Emblem Awakening. It would be so cool. It's not the be all end all. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to enjoy it or I'm not going to rate it that high. I have to wait and play the game. But if it was able to get that 90 plus Metacritic and get it back to where we were with Fire Emblem Awakening, I think that would just be super cool from a sentimental and just from a, I would say, overall point of view. Really, I think it would be cool. It would just be cool to see, and I'd love to see it for one of my favorite franchises. Now, could this be the best modern Fire Emblem game of all time? And I think that you really have to split it up a little bit. I mean, if you want, you don't have to. You can say, well, best Fire Emblem game of all time. But I do think that there are 2 distinct eras you do have the modern Fire Emblem era, and then you do have the like original Fire Emblem where you have the games that are like fight, cutscene, and kind of go in that order. And then you have the more modern ones that have like world maps and have more relationship stuff and have more other side quests and things that you can do and all that type of stuff. So there is some exceptions, of course, with past Fire Emblem games like Fire Emblem 4 and things like that, but I do feel that you can split it up. And if you're talking about modern Fire Emblem, absolutely, this has a huge chance at being the best modern Fire Emblem game of all time. And I'm thinking to myself, based off of what I'm seeing here, based off of the visuals, based off the presentation, based off the combat, based off of what they've shown in these previews, it's more dynamic than Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's got more content than pretty much a lot of Fire Emblem games. It's got better pacing because now instead of having to be able to, start up a whole new save file and play through multiple different paths and have to replay content over, you can do it all kind of like in tandem. You can switch between them and it's all right there on one save. That to me is significantly better. Replay value, significantly better game design, and it makes it to where it's like, okay, I can really truly experience all these characters. And from what they're saying in these previews, there's not a bunch of repeat content and all that. They all have unique missions and storytelling and structure, so it's going to feel like a connected story like you were supposed to from the very beginning, where Fire Emblem Three Houses and even to a degree like Fire Emblem Birthright and Conquest feel very like, man, this could have just been like integrated better like in one game. So I do believe that this could be the best Fire Emblem game of all time based off of some of these previews here. And really, I said this before. I said this even before the previews came out. I was basing it on what I see because I've been playing Fire Emblem for decades now. And I was basing it on what I saw, what I'm seeing, and it was showing that this game has a ton of potential to be the best game when it comes to Fire Emblem of all time. And it's looking like maybe it just might do that. Now, can this be a Switch 2 system seller? I did see in the comment section over on SkillUp saying, hey, this is the reason why I'm going to buy a Switch 2 now at this point. And I'm thinking, well, we need to calm down a little bit. Fire Emblem has been somewhat of a system seller. I do think that Fire Emblem Awakening did get people to buy a Nintendo 3DS. I think Fire Emblem Three Houses did get people to buy a Switch 1, but it's not like the massive system seller like a Mario Kart or like a 3D Mario or like a Smash Brothers or things like that. I don't think anybody's saying that. I'm not saying that. That's not going to be something, but I'll kind of go back to what Mr. Miyamoto and what Nintendo said over and over, and that Nintendo needs to provide a constant cadence of games that are diverse, that are fun, and that are good. So it's not just about putting out games that are the biggest, that sell the most, that are Mario, Zelda, Smash, Animal Crossing, only that stuff. It's about putting a variety of diverse games out there when it comes to the structure of the games. So having a strategy RPG, that's incredible. Having a game like Metroid Prime 4, first-person action adventure shooting type of game, that's incredible. Having different types of games that have a wide toolkit and wide range. And maybe they don't sell the most. Maybe they sell 2 million or whatever, but you still have that game that makes your overall lineup with the big system sellers look so much more appealing. So when 3D Mario comes out, people can look and say, okay, oh, Star Fox looks kind of good. Okay, I'll pick up 3D Mario and Star Fox. Or when they pick up Super Smash Brothers, oh, that looks great. I'm buying the system for Super Smash Brothers. Oh, well, maybe I'll pick up Super Smash Brothers and I'll pick up Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. That is what Fire Emblem does. It's going to get people who love Fire Emblem and say, okay, I want to get the game right now at this point. It's going to get those people, but it's also going to be one of those games that helps supplement and boost other titles that Nintendo puts out to create a more appealing system overall. Nintendo has such a unique way of doing things because yes, the sales of the game are important and that's part of it, but they don't need every single game to sell 50 million copies like Animal Crossing New Horizons. They don't need every single game to sell like Super Smash Brothers. The games that they have and the games that they continue to sell secures that they can take flyers and chances on stuff like Fire Emblem, which those games are profitable and they support themselves, but it means that everybody can still make these creative type of games like a Xenoblade Genesis and not have to worry about, oh man, we didn't sell 7 million copies because this game took $70 million to make or something like that. We don't have to do that. So that's the good thing. And Miyamoto has said as much when it comes down to that because they have a lot of the games like 3D Mario, like Odyssey, for example, that'll sell 30 million, well past whatever the game's development budget was that helps support the whole system of Nintendo, so Retro Studios doesn't have layoffs. When a game like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which was a very expensive game to make, when that game doesn't sell up to maybe what it needs to sell, right, to make a good amount of profit. So that's the cool thing. So is it a direct massive system seller? No. But is it a game that gets people to think about the system in conjunction with the bigger titles? Absolutely. And we saw that with Fire Emblem Three Houses. That game sold 5 million units, right around there. That's a good amount of units being sold. That's not bad at all. And that's one of those auxiliary games that's high reviewing, that get people thinking about the system just in general from a core gamer standpoint. So I do think that that is what Fire Emblem and games like Xenoblade Genesis and games like Metroid Prime and games like that offer, alongside the big games like Pokemon and Animal Crossing and Smash and Mario and Zelda and all of that. So it all works out at the end of the day and kind of makes the system that turns Nintendo to keep going. So I love that about Fire Emblem. I love that about what they're doing here, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the game as we get closer and closer to the September 17th release date for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. So what do you think about all of the previews so far, the new gameplay, what's going on here? What do you think about the Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave Direct and what's happening? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.